Hey you guys, and welcome back to my channel. My apologies for my hair and face, but today we're going to be doing a full face of products that I'm considering decluttering. So I obviously needed a blank canvas, and well, as far as the hair is concerned, it's like 5:59 in the morning, so it's far too early to do anything with this. I'm pretty certain that I have at least one makeup item for every single category to do a full face, with the exception of like mascara or lashes, because I don't wear lashes that often. If you guys are interested in seeing some of the products that I'm considering decluttering, as well as seeing me test them out on my face to create a makeup look that who knows what it'll turn out to be, then just keep watching. Like I said, it's very early, so coffee is necessary. So I have already gone in and cleansed my skin for the day, done my morning skincare routine. So we're ready to go. I only have one primer that I'm currently considering decluttering, and this is my Benefit the Professional Pro Balm to minimize the appearance of pores. Now this is one of the oldest primers I have in my collection, so one, it's just getting old, so that's one of the reasons I'm considering decluttering it. And two, I bought into the hype of this. I purchased this when I was first getting into like really watching a lot of YouTubers and things like that. So at that time, I swear like everyone was talking about this primer. And I didn't really realize like my own personal needs at that time. I didn't realize like I had dry skin, and typically like people with dry skin don't always love pore filling primers. I mean, if you have dry skin and large pores, then obviously you probably do. But I also didn't realize that pore filling primers tend to like mattify you a little bit more. Now I don't dislike pore filling primers, but I prefer a more hydrating primer. So I just never find myself reaching for this primer, which is why I'm considering decluttering. I also do have other pore filling primers in my collection that I could use if I did declutter this. But I do want to give this one last go. It does feel very silicone-y, and if I remember correctly on this one, I feel like I've had times where it's like pilled or balled up on me, which I do feel like I get sometimes with pore filling primers. Usually I just like to take pore filling primers in my T-zone too, but because it's the only primer I pulled today, I'm just going to put it all over my face. This actually smells pretty good. I don't remember it smelling good, and I'm surprised mine does still smell good, because if I'm being honest, this is like well past expiration. Okay, I did get a few little pilly balls on this, and it does, I don't know, it does look like, it like almost like looks like it's drying out a little bit, but it goes on fine. I definitely do have exceptionally dry skin right now, especially in my chin area for some reason, and I don't find it clinging to my chin, and I do feel like it does minimize the pores like around my nose and in my T-zone, which I feel like I have larger pores there. So I don't dislike the way that the primer went on. It's been a while since I've used this primer, but I just don't know if I love it enough to keep it. What I'm thinking is I will obviously go through, do my full face of all of my items, and then I'll use them for another couple weeks, and then I'll come back and do like a recap video and let you guys know what I've decided to declutter after a little bit more use, and what I may or may not be keeping in my collection. So for foundation today, I have the L'Oreal True Match Lumi Healthy Luminous Makeup Foundation. I thought I was gonna love this. I heard quite a few YouTubers talking about this as like a good drugstore option for a foundation, and they said it had like a more luminous sort of finish. My brain does not work fast enough in the morning. They said it had a more luminous finish, which I typically tend to prefer. I prefer like a natural leaning Lumi finish. So I thought that I would love this, but I found with my makeup preferences lately, like there's a very fine line between like luminous and too luminous. There's a very fine line between Lumi and too Lumi. Like I hate when you get that foundation that's just too dewy, that it slips and slides all over your face all day, and it transfers, and you have to like set it with a powder, and it still doesn't look that great, and it's like, what's the point of setting a Lumi foundation with a powder? So that is kind of what I found with this foundation. I've tried it a couple other times since, and I just haven't loved it, but we're gonna give it one more go. This would probably be more of like a summertime foundation for me, and obviously it's winter right now, but we'll feel it out. So I've been going through a phase where I just like to use a sponge for my foundation. Who does that, where they go through phases? For me, it's either like brush and sponge, or just a sponge. It's never like just brush. But comment down below if you're the same way, where you like go through phases with how you like to apply your foundation. And I know like some foundations apply better one way or the other. Uh-oh. I think my daughter's awake. I look ridiculous with like my red ears and super white face. Okay, I'm still not loving it. Like, it's settling in. Like, I can't get it to blend out even really in my nose lines. And then it's just like not sitting well on my chin. And it's also not really sitting the best up on my forehead. I'll try this one with a brush again, like as I try this throughout the next like couple weeks. But I just do not like the way that this sits on my face. It doesn't really stick to my nose that well. And overall, I'm just not a fan. If I would have to choose right now, I would say like definitely declutter this one. Next up, we have my Tarte Shape Tape in Fair. Now I do have this in Fair Beige as well, which I think is like a little bit of a better match for me. I believe I bought Fair and then I bought Fair Beige. And again, if I'm being honest, this is probably, ooh, considering it has a 6-month shelf life, this is probably well past expiration as well. But I don't know why I'm swatching a concealer for you guys, but consistency and stuff is still the same. Now, the reason I'm considering decluttering this, one is because I already have another one that matches me better. But two, this is just so full coverage for me. Like, I rarely, if ever, reach for this. I think, so I brought this with me on my Vegas vacation last year, which was probably the only time throughout the entire year that I reached for this concealer. And embarrassing story, so I wore this concealer out one night, and obviously it's super hot in Vegas. And we came back to the hotel that night, and I looked at my face, and literally all of my foundation was had worn off. Like, I'd sweated it off, it had come off, but then I just had like these white triangles that were still there underneath my eyes that like you could, like, it was like the Tarte Shape Tape that didn't wear off. So I mean, I gotta hand it to Tarte Shape Tape. I mean, it's super long lasting, it's gonna stay on your face, but that was really embarrassing. So we shall see about this. I can like see myself honestly probably deciding just to hang on to this, just because I mean it still does work for me. But also, if I'm being honest, like I probably shouldn't hang on to it because it's, well, expired and I never reached for it. I'm gonna pop a little bit more onto my nose since my foundation doesn't want to stay on my nose. That is another good use for the Tarte Shape Tape I've heard, is to just pop some on your nose to get your foundation to stick better on your nose. You guys probably won't be able to see on screen, but this foundation is like uber settling into the forehead lines. I feel like no matter what, I just like really wanted to declutter that foundation. I probably will at the end of this video. Okay, so next up I have my Laura Mercier translucent invisible loose setting powder. Now this I bought when I was again really getting into YouTube, and this was when baking was like all the rage. So I got this because obviously everyone was recommending the Laura Mercier no translucent setting powder for baking, etc. But like many other people, this just does not work to bake underneath my eyes. It's way too heavy, it looks way too cakey, it looks really, really bad. And I've caught myself in a bind a couple times where I've used this to like set underneath my eyes, and then I've gone to work, and then like a couple minutes after arriving at work, I'll like look in the mirror and just be horrified as to how cakey my under eyes look. So I've just like basically pushed this to like the back of my drawer and just like never gone back to reach for it. Oh my gosh, it's so messy too. So rather than use this to set underneath my eyes, I'm going to see if I can use this just to like lightly dust all over my face and use it as a setting powder and see how I like it that way. I'm literally just going to like stamp it all over my face. Okay, so that looks okay, but it still like didn't smooth out like my forehead lines. And honestly, like until I spray it with a setting spray, like it just looks so powdery, and so like it just makes my skin look dry and cakey. So I feel like I probably wouldn't end up using that as a setting powder either, so that means that one's probably going to get the boot for my collection as well. Okay, so now I have a couple of things for like bronzer and contour. So I have my Wet n Wild Mega Glow contouring palette that everyone has, and a part of me feels like I need to keep this just because this is such like a staple in like everyone's makeup collection, but I just never ever reach for this. I used to obviously reach for this all the time. I hit pan on the contour shade, but I haven't reached for this. I don't know if I've reached for this at all this year. If I have, it's just been like a handful of times. Then I also have my Alexis Ren and ColourPop highlighting and bronzing palette, and I used to really like this. When this first launched, Jaclyn Hill was always talking about how this was like a beautiful bronzing shade, but in my opinion it just looks like it's probably a little bit too warm toned for my skin, probably a little bit too dark. So, and again, this is one that like I've maybe reached for 2 times this entire year, so like regardless I probably should just get rid of it. And then finally I have my Wet n Wild Color Icon bronzer in Take Me to Brazil, and for this one actually may work on my skin. It's super light, you can barely tell, which is kind of what you want from a bronzer, but I just haven't reached for this one in a really long time. I used to reach for this all the time, so I was kind of like up in the air on whether or not I wanted to keep this. I think I'm for sure going to use this to contour today, but I think I may use this for my bronzer today, and I'll set this aside for maybe a future makeup I'm considering decluttering video, just because of all 3, like this is the one, like if I had to choose only one right now to keep without testing any of them, it would be this one. And just for S's and G's, I'm going to take the banana powder of this and like set underneath my eyes, even though we just set my face, just again for S's and G's. I like literally hate this foundation. Oh my goodness, gross. Okay, so then taking that contour shade, and I always just go in with my Morphe 510 brush for contour. It just has always worked really well for me. And we're gonna contour cheekbones. Okay, I actually like that quite a bit. Way more than I remember. I haven't contoured in so long. Well, part of it too is that I've had my Hoola Benefit bronzer in my 18 and 2018 project pan, and I've used that for contour literally all year, so I like just haven't been reaching for any other contouring products. But I actually really do like that. I feel like it's coming across harsher on screen than it is like in real life, but I'm digging it. Okay, I don't know if you can see like this white line above, or yeah, like above my hairline, literally that's like white above this contour. That's like my foundation like just sticking there. That's ugh. Okay, we'll blend the rest of that contour out when I bronze, whatever. Looks ridiculous. So then, like I said, I have a feeling that this bronzer shade is going to be just like too dark for me, so I'm probably going to end up looking ridiculous here. But okay, my foundation is like literally sticking to my hairline and I can't blend product over it, so that's why like this looks ridiculous right now. I get like my forehead could probably be blended a little bit better too, but wow. Okay, so I don't hate the bronzer. Oh my god, I haven't had this like intense of a cheekbone like anything in a while. I don't hate the bronzer, but I do feel like it's probably a little bit warm toned and a little bit too dark for my face, so I don't know. Oh my gosh, this is like bothering me that it's not blending out on my forehead. Okay, so I have 3 different blushes that I'm considering decluttering, and I believe I've gotten them all in subscription boxes. The first is this Pretty Vulgar blush, which I don't think I'm going to use today because it's more of a cool tone blush, and I just don't feel like it's going to work with this look anyway. I don't know if you'll even be able to see it swatched, but it looks like this really intense pink. I mean, and it kind of is. Like, that's intense for a blush. I'll probably end up just decluttering this anyway because I've never reached for it since I've had it. Yeah, I'm going to declutter this. I'm literally never going to use this. Okay, well, I'm decluttering this for sure. And then I have this, oh, this is the highlighter. Never mind. So then the blush we're using today, this will be interesting. This is a powder blush by Studio Makeup. And it's a really, really pretty color. I just have never really used like a loose powder blush before. There it is. I don't know if you'll be able to see it swatched, but there it is right there. So just like a nice neutral blush, but it does have like some glitter in it, it looks like, which I don't know why you do to a blush, but we'll see how this goes. Okay. Okay, that was too hard to apply. I'm going to be saying goodbye to this too. This is like a for sure declutter. I mean, it's a pretty color, but like I'm never gonna reach for this because it's just too easy to reach for like a pressed powder blush. So this one can go. I literally look so ridiculous. Okay, next up for brows, I have this The Brow Gal Instant Brow Hair Tinted Brow Gel with micro gel fibers. So this isn't like a pencil or like a powder. So actually I'm gonna go in and fill my brows in with a powder like I normally do, and then we'll just use the tinted brow gel and see how this works. Ooh, the applicator on this is bent and curved. That's kind of neat. Actually, you know what? For the sake of this video, let's just see how this looks with no product in the brows, just to see what it adds. Wow, that actually adds a good amount of pigment. So I just opened this on screen with you guys. I was just gonna like declutter this unopened and untried. But I am digging this. On days that you're just doing like brows and mascara, oh my gosh, this is easy. I need to pluck my brows so bad. I feel like I say that in every video. Okay, that literally makes such a difference. I am a fan. Love this. Definitely keeping this. In fact, I'm just going to pop this into my everyday like makeup drawer right after I film this video because I love this. I'm curious how much this, or like what this actually retails for and where I can get more. Okay, so for eyeshadow palettes, I have 3 palettes that I'm considering decluttering. The first is the Pure Soiree Diaries. I can't remember if I was sent this in a subscription service box or if I purchased this. It's a really pretty neutral palette. You have 2 rows of mattes and then a row of shimmers. But I do find that the mattes in this palette are just like a little bit difficult to work with. They go on a little bit patchy. They're a little bit harder to blend. And I just don't find myself reaching for this palette that often. Then I have my Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, which has gotten a lot of love from me in the past, but I just didn't find myself reaching for it this past year. So I'm questioning like whether or not I really need to keep it in my collection. And then finally I have the Pure Love Yourselfie 2 palette, which is just really bulky. It came with a mascara and like 2 lip products as well. So it's like a bulkier package. You get 2 highlights and then a bronzer shade too, as well as 8 eyeshadow shades, which are really, really pretty. I was so excited when I purchased this But this was another one that I like purchased and just kind of like forgot about, or it fell under the wayside. Like it definitely got some use for me, but not as much as it deserves. So I think this is the palette that I'm going to test out today, just because this is one like that takes up the most space in my collection. So I really want to know if I really want to keep this or not. So yeah, let's jump into the palette. I'm just going to create a super basic look. So right off the bat, I'm just going to jump into this transition shade right up here. And pop that into the crease. I've also had this in my collection for a while. I don't think you can even get this palette anymore. Maybe you can, but I mean, this palette is pretty old. At least a couple years. Okay, so this is one thing I remember not liking about the palette. You really only get these 3 mattes, and 2 of them are like lid shades or like an inner corner or brow highlight. This is like more of a cool toned brown shade, which I have in the crease right now, which I like. Sorry if you can hear my Keurig in the background. I'll wait. And then the rest of these are like satins or shimmers, so it just makes creating like a full look out of just this palette a little bit hard, which like that's kind of the point of this palette, to have everything in here that you need for a look. So next I'm going to take this Panorama shade, which is like more of a satin shimmer shade, and I'm going to try and pop this, or like use this to deepen up my crease. But I just feel like you're pretty limited with like the looks that you can create out of this palette. Like that's pretty, but I like literally can create this look out of just about any other palette in my collection. So like at that point, it's not worth keeping a super huge bulky palette then. So normally with this palette, I would pretty much probably just call it good with this, because I just find it hard to like, you know, figure out a look that you can really use this red shade, unless I was to use like this bronzer shade as my transition. But again, just for S's and G's today, I'm going to take this Paparazzi green shade and try and put this all over my lid, just because I want to see how the shade performs and what it looks like. This is like the shade in the palette that like gives me the most sort of like feels, just because I love green shades like that, even though I find them like super hard to like create a look with. And we got real smoky really quick here. Okay, if I spent quite a bit more time blending this, I feel like I could actually create like a pretty smoky look, and one that I liked at that. But again, I just feel like I'm never gonna reach for this. I think this was the first time this year that I reached for this palette, so I just feel like I can probably do without it in my collection. I'm gonna quick pop some liner and mascara onto my eyes, just because I don't have any of those that I'm considering decluttering right now, and then we'll be right back to do highlight and talk about my final thoughts about some of these products. Alright guys, we've made it to the final product, which is highlight, and I actually have 2 highlighters that I'm considering decluttering. One is by Makeup Revolution. It is one of their Vivid Baked highlighters in the shade Peach Lights. This used to be one of my favorite highlighters, but my highlighter collection has grown so large over the course of the last year that I just don't find myself reaching for this anymore. So I want to use this today and see if I still like it the way that I used to. And then the second one is actually my Sleek Makeup little quad here. This is in, I believe, Solstice. Yes. And really the only highlighter that I've used in this one is the cream highlighter shade right here, which I didn't love when I used to use this. I used this like for a good couple weeks one summer, and every time I wore it I was like, why did I choose to wear this highlight? Because this is making me look like I have texture that I don't even think I have texture there, but it was making me look so textured. Because I've already laid down so much powder on my face today, I'm not going to go in with that cream highlight, but I'm going to use one of these other powder highlights and trying to decide whether or not I want to keep this. So I'm going to do the sleek side on my right, and then I'm going to do the Revolution, Makeup Revolution on my left. And I think I'm just going to go in with this more like peachy shade. It's almost just like a white, shade. Then, see, these powdery highlights by Solstice feel a bit scratchy. Ooh, tough choice. I do think I'm gonna go in with this light, sort of like white champagne highlight. And I'm just taking that on my Luxie tapered highlighter brush and popping that on. Wow, okay. I know I have seen people say that these are super intense, which it definitely is. Whoa. Okay, definitely super intense, but it isn't like that wet looking highlight, and it looks super muddy I get with my bronzer right now. Which I've been more into like that. It just doesn't look as smooth as some of the highlighters that I prefer. Now I'm going to go in with my Makeup Revolution on the other side, and like I said, I used to love this highlight. And this one has more of like a duochromatic shift to it. It's like a little bit more like purpley, or has like a purple hue to it. It's definitely like intense, but I feel like it reminds me too much of my Becca Prismatic Amethyst, and I feel like I can just use the Becca one over this one. I don't hate it, but I'm not living for it. I just don't think it's like the right color for my skin tone. Okay, and then I don't have like a mist I'm considering decluttering, so I'm just gonna go in with my Ofra Makeup Fixer Spray. This is what I've been using lately. And we'll see what the final look looks like dried down. But I can already tell you guys, I feel like I have my mind made up on most of the products that I used today, so I may as well just declutter them now. And there might be a couple products that I want to think about for a couple more weeks, but I think I have a good idea about most of these. I also forgot to mention, you guys, I don't have a lip product that I picked out that I'm considering decluttering. I honestly have so many lip products in my collection, I really should start to consider decluttering quite a few of them. But let's really quick run through all the products that I tested out today. First, we have the Benefit Professional, and I gotta say I'm gonna keep trying this for a couple more weeks before I make my final decision up about this. So I'll include this in some sort of like recap video in the future. But this one, I don't know, like I don't hate it. It's not like my favorite. I definitely won't repurchase this if I finish this, but I don't quite have my mind made up about this one yet. As far as the L'Oreal True Match Lumi Foundation, I'm definitely going to declutter this. This just doesn't sit on my skin well. It clings to like certain patches of my face, specifically my hairline, and then it doesn't sit well on my nose. It sinks into my forehead lines. It sinks into like my nose crevices. It like, I feel like makes me look like I have more like peach fuzz on like my mustache area than I have. I just feel like this ages me, and this just does not look good on my skin. So I will definitely be decluttering this right now. As far as the Tarte Shape Tape, I'm gonna hold on to this for a little bit more. I'm gonna hold on to this for a little bit longer. I'm gonna keep testing this, see if I can get it to really hold on to my like nose foundation and use it kind of like dual purpose for that. I don't know that I'll use it a ton as concealer, just because I don't wear full coverage concealer on a day-to-day basis, but this is obviously a really nice concealer. I know you guys have heard so much about this, so this one I'm not ready to part with yet. Then we have my Laura Mercier Translucent setting powder. I'm just gonna declutter this. I've had this in my collection for so long and I don't reach for it. I feel like it makes my skin look cakey whether or not it's underneath my eyes, whether or not I use it to set all over my face. It's just not a good powder for my skin tone, so I'm gonna get rid of this guy. Okay, so then I had my Wet n Wild Mega Glow contouring palette, and I actually am going to keep this. I'm almost through my Hoola Benefit bronzer, which I've been using as contour, and I actually forgot how much I do like this for contour. I think the shade works okay for me, so I'm gonna hang on to this for a while longer. And then as far as my Alexis Ren ColourPop highlighter bronzing duo, this highlighter shade is way too dark for me, and I just don't feel like this shade bronzer works well for me. I think it's a little too warm toned. I think it's a little bit too dark for me, so I am going to say goodbye to this. Then as far as blush is concerned, like I said, without even testing this, I'm just going to get rid of this pretty vulgar blush in the shade Prim Vixen. It's just not a blush I'm ever going to reach for. And I just dropped it anyway. Just not a shade I'm ever going to reach for, so I feel confident decluttering this. And then I'm also going to declutter my Studio Makeup loose powder blush in the shade, this is the Luminous Loose Blush. I haven't ever reached for this, and I'm not going to reach for it because I just find it way easier to reach for an actual pressed blush over a loose powder. It's just too hard to work with this type of formula in my opinion, so I'm gonna get rid of that. And then as far as the Brow Gal is concerned, I'm definitely hanging on to this. I really like this. Like I said, I opened this today. I had never tried this before, and I really like what it did for my brows. I didn't even add, this is the only thing I have in my brows, and I like the way it adds pigment, makes them look a little bit more fluffy. This would be perfect on days I'm just tossing on like a little bit of like brow product and then mascara and like calling it a day. So I'm excited about this. This was a good find out of this video. Then we have the Pure Love Yourself E2 palette, and for me, I'm just going to declutter this. I don't hate the eye look that I got. In fact, I actually kind of like it. It's like a little bit dark, a little bit smokier for what I normally go for. I really don't mind the shades in here, and it was a very easy formula to work with. I just find that you're very limited by this palette, and it's also just too bulky for me to be storing in my collection. I have plenty of other palettes right now in my collection that I can create pretty much the same exact look that I did with this, and those are palettes that I enjoy more than this one, so I am going to say goodbye to the Pure Love Yourself E2. And then finally we have my two highlights. I have the Makeup Revolution Vivid Baked Highlighter in Peach Lights, which is the one I have on this side of my face. I'm just gonna get rid of this. I just haven't reached for this in over a year, and I have so many highlighters in my collection. I think I can say goodbye to this. And then as far as the Sleek Solstice palette, I want to use this for a little bit longer and just see. I have a feeling I'll probably end up decluttering this because, again, this has been in my collection for a while now and I never find myself reaching for it. But I want to give every single shade in here a shot, and then I also want to try that cream highlighter again before I make my final decision. So I actually am decluttering 7 products out of my collection and keeping 4 for the time being. So I actually am really happy with the way that this video went. You guys will have to let me know in the comments if you like this style of video and if you would be interested in seeing more like this. Also, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, don't forget to do so before you go, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye!